In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia executed 81 people, convicting them of crimes ranging from killings to belonging to militant groups. This is the largest known mass execution carried out in the kingdom in its modern history. Journalist and international human rights activist Wajeeh Lion is with us now from the United States. Good evening to you from Tel Aviv.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Let's focus first for a moment on the militant groups. What are we talking about here?
The strongman MBS has made an enemy, and the Al Saud since their founding with the Shiite minorities in the in the east of Saudi Arabia. And these groups have, according to the Al Saud family, caused disruptions for the security of the state regarding freedom of speech or anything like that. Majority of these people were involved in protests asking for basic rights. Generally, we see the Saudi government claiming that anyone involved in freedom of speech or protests being claimed as terrorist or part of malicious groups. That's not to say that everyone in that group is innocent, per se. There has been 7 Yemenis executed, 1 Syrian, and the 61, the rest of them are all Shiite. So there's many question marks regarding these executions. They weren't public. We don't have a judicial system. We have a court system that is not transparent. So we don't know the details of the arrest. We don't know the details of why they were executed. We only have general statements from the Saudi government.
Now, Iran actually protested that to the Saudis, which makes us believe that maybe some of those were linked to Iran, right?
Iran, let's just be honest, Saudi Arabia sees it as its motherland for the Sunni population, and Iran sees its as motherland for the Shiites. So it's very natural for them to be supportive of the Shiite minority in the east of the country. Now, Al-Nimr and many of those Awamiya members, they have been persecuted for generations. And so I understand that for many this could sound like extremism, but for these people, they're facing executions on the daily. They're just basically asking for them to be treated as the rest of the Saudi citizens. We don't see any members of the Shia minority in any governmental offices or representation for them. So it's very common sense when you're talking about anti-terrorism. One of the biggest factors that plays in terrorism is that representation. And if there's no representation, we are more likely to see terrorist groups to take action.
One would think that Saudi Arabia was actually trying to improve its image around the world these days, vis-a-vis the United States and other interests. That doesn't help, does it?
No, it doesn't help. The Saudi goal is to whitewash itself and appear in the international community as a very important player for the region. Sadly, this is not where we are heading, because these actions are only cosmetic. We're not seeing any real changes on the ground. We're not seeing any real representations on the ground. These executions we have seen in the past, kids from the Shiite minority, the same exact families that we have seen executed recently were executed. I know personally a 17-year-old that was executed a couple years ago just because he was a member of the Shiite organization and went on a protest. Again, the Saudi government loves throwing around the word militias and terrorism on anyone, including myself. For example, I'm asking for freedom of speech or asking for LGBT rights in the Middle East. And when I do that, they're considering me as a threat to the Saudi government, and therefore they're going to consider me as a terrorist later on. So when we discuss terrorism, sadly, and malicious group, the Saudi government has lost its control because Mohammed bin Nayef, the former minister of secretary, was able to hold these terrorist group in action.
Wajeeh, we have to stop because I have a hard break here. I'd like to thank you very much. We have to take a break and we'll be right back.